Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the E2 conference hosted by Enzyme Finance in cooperation with Dystopia Labs. I hope you guys are excited. We've got a full house here. We've got 1,033 people. I'm here with Mona Isa, the founder of Enzyme Finance. If you want to say hi real quick. And GL Detian, one of my fellow Enzyme Finance Council members. And the three of us will be hosting the first session of today's conference, which is Enzyme as the DeFi operating system. I'm just waiting on Mona to share the screen, and we'll dive right ahead. But it's awesome seeing a full house in the comment section. We get people from all over the place. I see a lot of US. I've seen Mexico. I've seen some Europe.
Is that working? Can you see that, Felix?
Yes. It is.
Great.
Yeah, excited to see what his days bring.
Awesome. Well, guys, let's dive right in. We got a full-packed conference ahead of us with so many speakers. So, as I said before, today's session with us will be Enzyme as a DeFi ecosystem, and I'm really excited that you guys are all here. But before we get into our session, which will be predominantly hosted by GL and Mona, I just want to give a quick overview of what's going to happen over the next 2 days, because we've got a lot of amazing speakers. We've got a lot of topics to cover. So for day one, for today, session one, we'll be covering exactly what we're talking about today in this session, which is the deep dive into Enzyme as an operating system, where Mona, the founder herself, as well as GL, one of the council members, will dive into what's been happening over the past few years, all the integrations, all the building, all the TVL growth, and how it now can be used by builders, to really go beyond Enzyme Finance under Avantgarde, but rather with many, many builders. So we've actually had many builders come on from Exponent AI, Unslashed Finance, Celsius, Crypto Simple Finance. A lot of the builders that have already today, built incredible things such as Unslashed, having multi-million-dollar, insurance treasuries built on Enzyme. And then at the end of the day, Avantgarde will unveil the 2022 roadmap, what's coming. Because if you guys followed us last year, so much has happened in 2021. Really, in mid 2020, there was maybe a couple $100,000 in TVL. There was a Uniswap integration, a Kyber network integration, and today we have Synthetics, Aave, Curve. We've got hundreds of millions of dollars in TVL. So a lot has happened, and even more is going to happen next. That takes us to day two. On day two, we're going to actually take a DAO focus. If you guys have been attending some of our community calls, you're well aware that Enzyme has reshifted focus a little bit from just serving, traders that want to, run a fund on Enzyme, to thinking, hey, there's the entire DAO vehicle, which is really, it's a major emerging industry, is really in need of good tooling where they can manage their treasuries in decentralized and transparent way. And Enzyme is just a tool for that. So on day two, we'll talk about exactly that, the tooling, the problems we're going to solve with it. And we're bringing in a lot of incredible speakers for that. For example, we've got Kane from Synthetics, Stani from Aave, and also our partners at Lido Finance that are going to discuss the challenges of running a DAO, both from a treasury perspective, a governance perspective. We got some speakers from CoinShift, and we even have the founders of Open and UMA come to discuss how we can use options for token native yields, because right now it's easy to get yields on, say, USDC, but with options you're able to get the yields on essentially any ERC20 token. Now, then we're actually going to dive even further, right? And that's where I think 2022 will get really exciting, because we'll talk about topics such as, how to do asset management in the metaverse, right? We're seeing these new metaverses emerge with, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in native assets, right? Even with NFTs. And how can you make them capital efficient? How can you make them transparent? How can you, have a community-run metaverse treasury? We're then going to dive into L2, as some of you have maybe heard from our last community call. Enzyme is getting ready for its Polygon deployment. So we'll have the team at Polygon with us to talk about that. And we'll discuss finally the regulatory landscape of DeFi, and of course, what maybe many of you are waiting for. We've got a chat with Raul Pal, who'll be joining us to discuss the community and investing and have a great session with Real Vision. So with that, I hope you guys are excited for the next 2 days. It's packed. There will be a lot of info, a lot to learn. I think times like this when the market is down is the best time to learn. It's really good times like, take the foot of the gas a little bit and dive deep. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So glad you guys are here. And with that, I'm going to go a bit over to GL, who will give a little 2021 in review.
Yeah, thanks for that. So 2021 was the year that Enzyme launched, and really amazing progress was made, in my opinion. So if we go to the next slide, the transition from the previous Melon protocol to Enzyme really simplified the process of accessing DeFi in a secure and a programmable manner. So in my opinion, it's very comparable from going from an unfriendly operating system like DOS interface back in the day to something more intuitive like Windows or Mac OS. So next slide. And I believe by the changes that happened the past year, it was also very successful to attract more users. So after 1 year, roughly 1,000 custom strategies were deployed on Enzyme. These are custom trading vaults in which over 2,500 deposits were made. Next slide, Mona, please. So the assets under management, they increased to about $180 million worth of assets at the peak about 9 months ago. In a total of 9 months, so in September. Now the total amount decreased a bit, mainly due to these market fluctuations, but we do see this steady increase in more people using Enzyme to store their funds. And I believe this was largely due to novel DeFi functionality. So if we go to the next slide, we can see there are a lot of ways that were integrated in 2021 to make DeFi a lot more accessible. So getting access to the best yield, novel lending platforms, trading platforms, staking of a bunch of assets through this multi-protocol integration. So the team of Enzyme has really been shipping them gradually over the past year. For instance, like adding support for Curve, for Yearn Finance, for like Paraswap, for even like Uniswap liquidity provisions, etc. So a lot of the functionality that is out there in the DeFi ecosystem is now available from within Enzyme. So making really it a one-stop tool to manage your funds. And when we go to the next slide, we see there's also very recently a lot more interest from external developers, but also fintech applications and DAOs, or generally organizations, to use Enzyme as a building block for their applications or their organization for a variety of use cases. So this ranges from treasury management, for example, with Unslashed or FWB, who are managing their organization's funds completely through Enzyme. But some very nice hackathon projects that, for example, allowed for automated trading strategies in Enzyme using Discord bots and other creative ways, to even a lot more retail-focused apps, like things that Exponent is working on. Or we also notice a lot of more traditionally CeFi companies who are more rooted into the centralized finance ecosystem, also branching out into DeFi through Enzymes. For example, Celsius X will also be presenting here at the conference later. But similarly, we also have forward-thinking investment funds like Technic Capital, really using Enzyme as a building block in their portfolio management. So like all these developments really make me excited for what is coming in 2022. So next slide, please. What happened the past year was really preparing the rails for mainstream adoption. So composability was extended quite a lot, accessibility increased very, very much, and there were a lot of UX improvements. So this is really preparing Enzyme for an accessible and a multi-chain future, where a lot more people will be able to make use of the platform, whether they even know it or not. I believe like the private beta of the Sulu release late 2021 was like a very nice step going forward to this. And I really see it as like the next evolution of the operating system, giving it even more functionality and accessibility. So yeah, I'm excited to see what the rest of the conference is going to bring, and I'm going to hand it over to Mona and the Avant-Garde team to further dive into the operating system.
Thanks, Gio. I like this slide. I didn't see it the first time. I guess you stuck it in at the last minute, but it makes me really excited too, because this Sulu release that we're about to have in a couple of weeks. I remember the game changer. Our last release was in end of January last year to V2 and 3. And I think Sulu will have just as big of an impact on people when it's released on all three of these metrics. So it's nice to see the slide sneak in. Cool. So we've heard from Felix about what we can expect the next 2 days. We're gonna dive into anything interesting happening in on-chain asset management. We've heard from Gilles about the highlights from 2021, and what I really want to spend the next 15 minutes or so on is introducing Enzyme as the DeFi operating system and the infrastructure underpinning asset management. This will be a great intro starter for people who are new to the community, but I also want to say that people who have been in our community for years will also probably benefit from this presentation or introduction, because Enzyme has evolved so much from what it originally started out to be. And we have, I think, done a really good job as a team at responding quickly to changes in the DeFi space and adapting to them. So I think there'll be something in here for everyone. So before we begin, let's kind of kick off with what is the DeFi operating system and sort of define what we mean by that. So DeFi is becoming increasingly more complex in the sense that there are dozens and dozens and dozens, probably even hundreds of protocols today where you can earn yield, market make, stake, govern, etc., etc. And it's becoming increasingly hard to navigate that space and interact with that space. At the same time, strategies in DeFi are becoming increasingly more sophisticated. So as a very simple example, if I want to deposit USDC into Aave, I will receive an AUSDC token back. And then I might want to go and enhance that yield by depositing AUSDC into the Curve Aave pool. So at this point, I've interacted with the Aave interface, connected my wallet, disconnected my wallet, then gone to the Curve website. I'm depositing into the Curve pool, and I'm receiving back an LP token. But there's still another way for me to enhance my yield by taking the LP token of the Aave Curve pool and then deposit that into the Aave Convex pool, and then, enhance my yield, earn CBX rewards, etc., etc. This is not a particularly sophisticated strategy. There are many more, much more complicated ones. But just to show you in that simple example, we had to go to 3 different websites, connect our wallet 3 times. And additionally, we have no way of tracking in real time what our PNL is, either historically or in real time for such a strategy. So the idea of the DeFi operating system is to aggregate protocol functionality and interaction in one simple, unified protocol and interface, which gives users simplicity, but then build on top of that using the operating system easy, typical standard asset management functionalities that can help you basically be the building blocks for you to do anything in asset management. So we talked a little bit about the intuitive dashboard and composable on-chain strategies. Through Enzyme, you can access all of your DeFi integrations from one place and compose on-chain strategies from the comfort of one interface, connecting once with either a multi-sig or a single wallet. You'll have simple, real-time, 24/7 NAV reporting. Additionally, because of the sophisticated subgraphs that we run underneath Enzyme, we are storing events from all the activities that take place within your account or your vault, and so can produce reporting which is akin or equivalent to the kind of reports you would see in traditional finance. Another feature, an asset management feature, which is quite popular, is the ability to open up your strategy or your vault to third parties, either investors or mainly investors or depositors. And the protocol allows shares, ERC20 tokens, to be issued in in response for receiving an investment. So this allows you to create things like funds, indexes, but because of the flexibility, the customizability, the extensibility, and the modularity of the protocol, you can customize everything from who is allowed to invest, or are what's the minimum investment size that they're allowed to put in. You can dictate whether the shares will be transferable or whether they will be non-transferable. And you don't need to, in the same way that an operating system helps you interact with a computer without necessarily needing to speak a computer's language, the DeFi operating system enables you to do all the fund activities that you might need to do, all the asset management activities you need to do without needing to code. You just need to navigate through our simple interface. Another feature that the operating system has built inside it is this concept of fees. So anyone, again, running a strategy which is either open to third parties to deposit into, or being managed on behalf of a third party, like a managed account or a DAO treasury, for example, being managed by a third party or outsourced to a third party, can embed fees, anything from management fees to performance fees to entrance fees, exit fees, and you can even code in your own fees if we don't have them. But again, because of the customizability, because of the modularity, you can decide what those fees are in percentages, and you can build rules around those fees, such as where do they go? Do they go to the manager of the vault strategy? Do they go to the vault itself, or do they get split to a certain, maybe token holders for certain token holders, et cetera, et cetera. And the last big feature that I want to highlight today is the possibility of delegating trading in a trustless way. And we can only do that on Enzyme because we have programmable risk management policies. This is something we've really been trying to dial up the volume on recently. Anyone who is managing a DAO treasury today or running a corporate treasury today has the same problem in DeFi. If you're trying to do it in a decentralized way, in a trustless way, and you're trying to sign, get several signatures or reach consensus before you sign off a DeFi transaction, you will never get anything done in DeFi. Paraswap is a great example. If you haven't signed a transaction within 2 minutes, you will time out. So it's a very highly demanded quality to want to be able to delegate trading, even for DAOs, to a single person, because you get much higher operational efficiency. But you want to be able to do that transparently and securely. And because of our programmable risk management policies, you can build in rules which restrict the delegated traders' behavior or stop loss them. For example, we have a policy which is called the maximum slippage tolerance loss. So if a DAO were to delegate trading to me, for example, they could define a rule set that says if Mona has 5% slippage tolerance in a 7-day rolling period, her trading permissions will be revoked. And this gives a high degree, these kinds of policies give high degree of security to the stakeholders, whether they be your investors or whether they be DAO stakeholders like token holders, to know that things are being managed efficiently and in a way that is secure and transparent at all times. People can see your performance, people can see what you can and can't do, and people know that there are guardrails in place to avoid bad things happening. So we talked about the operating system, but how does it actually work in practice? So this is a nice little diagram that shows the operating system in practice. So any kind of user can create an Enzyme account or an Enzyme vault. You can either do that with a wallet or a multi-sig or any EOA contract. So it could even be like a with Tally contract, for example, or a Open Zeppelin Governor contract. And you can connect to the app. And once you've connected to the app, you can customize your account or vault as you want it. So you can determine who's allowed to invest. If anyone is allowed to invest other than the DAO, you can allow whether you want investments, whether those tokens you'll be issuing will be transferable or not, whether you want fees or not, whether you want to have risk management policies in place, whether you want to delegate trading, et cetera, et cetera. All of that is done, again, through a single, simple, unified interface. which tracks all your activities in real time, transparently, with reports which are extractable. And once you have set up your account, you are then able to interact with the full spectrum of integrations that we have. I would say that now with the Sulu release, we're going to be able to add integrations at a much, much, much faster rate than we were able to last year. So you'll be able to do everything from trading on DEXs. If you want to do a simple trade asset A for asset B, Enzyme will filter through all the DEX connections that we have, and it sort of acts as a aggregator of aggregators, or aggregator of DEXs and aggregators, to give you the best prices. You can lend and borrow and even farm on the major lending and borrowing protocols. You can deposit into AMM pools and hold LP tokens, so Curve pools, Uniswap AMM pools, and we're also having V2 and V3 of Uniswap. So there's quite a lot of composable strategies you can already probably be thinking of. We're integrated with Yearn vaults, idle strategies. Protocols like Convex will be live in the next week or two, which will enable you to enhance yield, Olympus staking, etc., etc. So really, the full spectrum of DeFi activities is possible from one single unified interface, which makes a whole dozens and dozens of use cases possible, which I'm just going to highlight a few. So the obvious one, and the one that we've always associated with ourselves with until quite recently, is funds. So ability to, code in fees, handle investors, risk management policies, et cetera, the ability to create indexes. And this one is really interesting because, indexes could be either like funds, I guess, but in the case of an index, you might want to do something like a DPI where you almost like pre-fund the vaults, and then the LP tokens or the vault tokens are transferable in the secondary market. Again, this is now possible because shares with Sulu or the LP shares of the vault will be transferable, or you can configure them to be transferable. So there's a lot of interesting things you can do there to limit your ability to the need to rebalance consistently. You can save gas, and you can leverage third-party liquidity or AMM pools. Another interesting use case, which we're seeing quite a lot of traction with, is DAO treasury management. As Gilles mentioned, we have been getting much more interested in the DAO treasury space, and as actually the earliest DeFi DAO in history, we faced some of the DAO treasury problems firsthand, and that's one of the reasons we want to get into the tooling around that, or we have started getting into the tooling around that, and we want to accelerate that in 2022, which I'm sure you'll hear about on our product roadmap talk later today. Corporate treasury, pretty much identical to DAO treasury in terms of the problems it's solving, with the additional thought process around more traditional bridges. Investment DAOs, again, very similar, kind of a bridging of a DAO and a fund. Enzyme is very well set up for that. Autonomous strategies like strategies such as yield or idle Yearn vault, and idle strategies, which are often coded into smart contract and executed autonomously. Absolutely no reason why you couldn't do a strategy and quite a sophisticated strategy like that using Enzyme. Another one that I like to give the example of is option selling strategies, because we've seen the likes of Ribbon really take off with treasury management products by having these kind of strategies. And the nice thing about all of these things is you're not limited to just option selling or or yield or trading. You can it's so composable because we have all the integrations. You can mix and match. You can adapt your strategy over time. And last but not least, protocols can potentially benefit from this. When we look at more traditional lending protocols like Maple Finance or Unslashed really pioneered this. You can think about how they can enhance the collateral that they're holding for their users by earning additional yield on it. And Unslashed really pioneered that by I think being pretty much the first to think about accessing yield through Enzyme in a nice trustless way. So we talked about Enzyme as a DeFi operating system. We talked about how it works. The last kind of thoughts I want to leave you with are why, if you're thinking of building anything in asset management in DeFi, why use Enzyme? And I think there's really 4 reasons I want to hone in on. The first is focus. So building an infrastructure and the product at the same time is asking for trouble. I think basically outsourcing, building. We've been doing DeFi now for 5.5 years. We have built a ton of expertise in that. But what we have learned is that it's not building the protocol isn't the hardest part. It's building it whilst also maintaining it and keeping it secure. And I think that's something that is very, very underappreciated by new people coming into the space. So what the value proposition we want to give to projects who are thinking of entering the asset management space is focus on your product and outsource your security, infrastructure, and maintenance needs in asset management to Enzyme. The second benefit, and the reason why I think projects should consider using Enzyme, is you can greatly reduce your time to market. Basically, if you were to start building asset management infrastructure today, let's say you were able to turn it around, miraculously in 3 to 6 months, if you were able to hire the right Solidity engineers and afford them and get things done, then you would still need to have to deal with the problem of audits, which are just pretty impossible to book right now unless you have longstanding agreements with audit firms. You're looking at probably about 12 months to market, and the space is incredibly competitive. So think carefully whether you want to have that long lead time towards being able to launch a product, or whether you want to open a conversation with a partner like us and shave off months or even years to go to market. The third thing is really the ability, just highlighting the ability that even if you do use Enzyme as a building block to build your own products on top of it, you can still own your user journey. So you don't have to use the Enzyme interface. You can use a white labeled interface. You can have your own token and you can build your own network effects, and we'll even help you doing that. And last but not least, you can accelerate by working with us. So Avantgarde is one of the core contributors to the Enzyme protocol. We report to the Enzyme Council, but we are a private company. We're very nimble. We're able to move fast. We have acquired a huge amount of tech expertise over the years. And typically when we partner with projects, it's not just on the tech side. We help them raise funds. We have acquired a huge bank of knowledge on the legalities around issuing a token and DeFi asset management, which we'll be telling you more about later this year. But in the meantime, we're always happy to share that information with partners. We can help you with marketing, and we can help you with networking and introductions in the space. So I think I'll end there. There might even be a couple of minutes for questions if there are any. But the last thought I'll say is, if you are thinking of doing anything in the space, building a product or leveraging Enzyme in any way, even if you think it's completely crazy, get in touch with us, send us an email. Our team will be more than happy to speak to you. And I'm sure that we're going to see way more of these partnerships hitting the Enzyme ecosystem in 2022.